In the future, the not so distant future, you're going to have to pick and choose between a central bank digital currency, slightly more convenient slavery, or slightly less convenient freedom, which is Bitcoin. It's happening. And I had a piece on the IMF today. I'm going to save it for tomorrow. But the reason I'm bringing it up is I want you guys to tie this in to what Phil was saying, right? So Phil was essentially saying is that the IMF essentially wants to have such a centrally planned currency that they don't want you to save. But you know what's stopping them? To use Christine Lagarde, the head of the European Central Bank's own words, that very, very naughty Bitcoin escape valve. So check this out. We're going to review this in totality tomorrow. I'm just going to read you this headline. This is the Global Financial Stability Report, April 2022 by the IMF, but I'm just going to read you this headline of this article that covers that report. IMF says capital control powers should include crypto. Why should they include crypto? Because it's the escape valve. Now, I want to focus on this article by The Guardian, a very reputable news source, right? That makes the case for what? The IMF's wet dream, baby. Those central bank digital currencies. And this ties into this idea that I've been trying to tell you guys over and over and over again. In the future, the not so distant future, you're going to have to pick and choose between a central bank digital currency, slightly more convenient slavery, or slightly less convenient freedom, which is Bitcoin. It's happening. Anyways, let's check this out. Article by The Guardian. Currency and control why China wants to undermine Bitcoin. While the argument rages about whether the volatility of crypto is a sign of fundamental weakness or merely a bump along the road, I would even say it's not a fundamental weakness. It's literally a feature, not a bug, right? Thing is, what they don't mention about this volatility is that it's volatility on the way up. These so-called stable currencies, it's literally progressively on the way down forever. Of course, they can't tell you that. Or merely a bump in the road. The initiatives coming out of Beijing are being seen by experts. Again, those are the same experts / scientists that called us psychopaths, as a sign of China's attempt to incubate its own fledgling e-currency. And check this out. China is going to reboot the international financial system. The People's Bank of China aims to become the first major central bank to issue a central bank digital currency. While the People's Bank of China counterparts in the West have taken a more cautious approach, maybe because they're not this, dictatorial regime that has killed tens of millions in their own people, back in the color revolution and all that. Maybe they're not locking down people in Shanghai and entire cities. Maybe that's the reason. But anyways, check out, dude, these corporate media legacy things are so compromised. Just check out the wording. The benefits of an e-currency are immense. As more and more transactions are made using a digital currency controlled centrally, the government gains more and more ability to monitor the economy and its people. Tie this in with the IMF that Phil covered. Tie this in with literally the headline of this article. We're going to go through it tomorrow, but check this out. IMF says capital control powers should include crypto. Bitcoin is the way out, which is why China banned it in the first place. And this is the alternative. This is the alternative that you have. And this is the pomp that these people have. The government gains more and more ability to monitor the economy and its people. When the fuck has the government ever done better than the free market at doing anything? Never. China believes that by internationalizing the yuan, it could reduce its dependence on the dollar-denominated banking system. Alarm in Western countries is such that the threat posed by the digital yuan, which could put China out of the reach from international financial sanctions. There it is again. The threat of an unregulated alternative monetary system emerging from blockchain technology is a clear and present danger to the Communist Party, according to observers. Seen from the perspective of central banks, cryptocurrencies are a threat to financial stability. There it is again. Financial stability to them basically means that Bitcoin undermines their ability to control people. That's what they define financial stability as. The people win. The elite central bankers, they lose. Anyways, and this, I think this quote is very telling. All central banks want to control them. The People's Bank of China, the US Federal Reserve, the the European Central Bank, he says they have no interest in parallel currencies floating around. So that's another reason to control cryptos. Here it is, Phil. Connect us what you were saying. To protect the consumer. Uninformed investors could lose huge amounts of money. What about all that money lost by that inflation? That's never mentioned.
No, because that's part of the system, Nico. That's part of that's a feature. The value loss is a feature, not a bug.
Fans said on Thursday that cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin had become tools for speculation and were bringing potential risks, here it is again, to financial security and social stability. Did you guys see the protests in all these countries about the massive inflation? What about that? Isn't that a threat to social stability? Listen, guys, when you have a corporate legacy media institution siding with the Chinese Communist Party, who is responsible for killing tens of millions of their own people during the Cultural Revolution, during the Color Revolution, literally starving people to death, right? That is usually not a good sign. That is usually not something that you want to copy. You know who also said that? Brad Sherman. You guys remember Brad Sherman? He said we should be following China's example. Let me tell you guys something. If the United States wants to keep its leadership role in the world of business and finance, it needs to get rid of this centralization bullshit, and it needs to double down on Bitcoin, where everybody wins. But in order for that to happen, a lot of these government bureaucrats need to fucking eat some humble pie and realize that they are the fucking problem. So yeah, man, it's just connect this with what Phil was saying about the IMF. Dude, the push for this is just absolutely absurd. Let me show two more examples here. And I look, for the Beijing Olympics, medal leaders reflect world central bank digital currencies. So they used the Olympic Games in Beijing to market their central bank digital currencies. An update to the global CBDC race and how the international debut of the digital yuan at the Winter Games is pure Olympic gold. Another mainstream institution, over $315,000 in digital yuan used every day at Olympics, People's Bank of China officials say. This is why the International Monetary Fund is against Bitcoin. This is why China bans Bitcoin within its borders. This is why the World Economic Forum attacks Bitcoin, because it gives people freedom from the central planners, and the central planners, that drives them absolutely up the wall. And if the United States, I don't think it's going to go this route, decides to try to go through the route of China, a central fucking this Frankenstein creature that's going to allow governments to control every single action that people do with their lives, they're not playing their strengths. The strengths of the United States is individualism, is American exceptionalism, right? And Bitcoin is perfect for that. Let's get rid of the central bank fucking money and let's move on to Bitcoin. And I hope that's the path that the United States takes. If we follow in the route of China, we're not going to do it as good as these crazy communists that are willing to kill tens of millions of their own people. We're just not going to do that. So are we going to half-ass it? Is it going to be like half of a surveillance coin, but it's still going to have some features? No. Let's double down on the most fucking American currency that was ever invented in the history of mankind, Bitcoin. Even the founding fathers would agree. Anyways, Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, they definitely would have all been Bitcoiners. That is 100%. The other thing is this, right? This is the final battle, right? This is the final boss. The central bank, the Bank of International Settlements. I mean, look, the separation of money and state is probably going to be the biggest battle of our time. I mean, the battle of separating church and state went on for, I don't know how many, I feel like it went on for definitely more than 100 years, if not more. That just, the business of dying for God is very good. Well, guess what? The business of dying for money is also good, right? Because we all know our current system is backed by violence, and we all understand how many people die, in these wars. But anyways, my point being, this is going to be a total uphill battle. I don't see us going in the direction of China. We are going to find out, right? We always say how Bitcoin exposes our incentives. We are going to find out exactly, number one, which states are freedom oriented and which ones aren't, because I think that that's where the battleground begins, right? If we start to see some politicians or a group of politicians start to bring in these practices from China, which we've already started to see, we are going to begin to see the divide, the further divide. Okay. Yes. And yeah. So anyways, I'm definitely, look, I'm optimistic about Bitcoin, but I'm definitely worried and scared because of who owns the corporate-owned media.
I
and
agree.
Their allegiances and incentives.
But they're dying. The ability of the corporate media to control the masses is severely diminishing year upon year. Joe Rogan being the most popular broadcaster, I think, highlights that.